There we go. Right. I do apologise about that. Oh, guys, sorry about the lack of sound there. My fault. I was muted. Welcome to the Accidental Journalist Live and Undrugged episode 18 with Big Ant. As always, thanks to the sponsors, Armour Scaffolding and No Means City Clothing. I'm talking to Big Ant, knife crime campaigner, former criminal. He's going to talk about his life and his book. Welcome, and thanks for coming on.
Thank you very much. How are you doing?
I'm good, mate. I'm good. It's good to hear a familiar accent. Sheffield lad, yeah?
Yeah, born and bred.
Yeah, Wakefield, full on. So, should be good, this one. So I like to take my guests back to the start. Tell us about how it began.
So, I went down a road people would call a bad path. Got involved in things that I shouldn't got involved in, and made mistakes. But none of it felt right. I didn't enjoy it. I always felt that I could make a lot more myself. I suppose that it was the lack of confidence and the lack of role models around. I didn't get no encouragement to do anything positive until I got older, and I always promised myself that I'd always get in a position where I could give back. As soon as I went to university, got my degree. While I was at university, I started a security company, and that was doing all right. So that's how I could start the knife crime stuff, because I saw a lot of young people making mistakes that they didn't need to, mistakes that I nearly learned the hard way from. I started that. I carried on at university. I went on to get my master's, and during my master's, I set up another company, which is a children's home for kids aged 16 to 18, semi-independent living. So yeah, I'm just all about giving back, and that's what I enjoy doing.
Brilliant, mate. So let's go back to the start of your story. You young Ant, how did you get into crime, and what happened?
Crime, it wasn't a bad thing. Where I grew up, my friends grew up, we all grew up, crime was normal. So it wasn't a naughty thing. I'd say everybody else did it, so why shouldn't I? I'm a mixed race kid, stereotyped as a drug dealer anyway. And you look on TV, you look for people to look up to. All of them are in hip hop or in those sort of roles, and they all, promote selling drugs and that sort of lifestyle. So it wasn't a drastic change, because it was normal to me, everyday life, and it was just like a step on. You want to make some money, you know how to make the money.
Yeah, so you were a dealer, yeah? And I presume that came with the violence and the knives and the weapons and stuff like that.
Yeah. I mean, there were any means necessary. Any means necessary. If I could make money on it, I'd make money on it. A lot of the things I sold weren't even illegal. It were just normal things that you could make money on, but you get it for a cheap price, you sell it for a high price, and that's a entrepreneur skill. That's what entrepreneur businessmen do, and I was doing the same thing, just that now and again, a couple of bad things came my way and they needed to get moved. But yeah, when you live that lifestyle, it's not just the money, it's the whole negative environment. It's a very dark place, and I'm sure there'll be a lot of people that look back that have been involved in it, and you'll realize that the only bright parts or when you were super drunk or super high partying. Other than that, it's pretty stressful, and it's not all what it's cracked up to be.
Yeah, I think you have to be a certain mindset to do that and to I could always use. I never use weapons. I always use my fists. But I knew people that wouldn't think twice about picking up a knife, picking up a baseball bat, and doing doing something with it. I've been doing the baseball bat around the knees. I know what that's like. Were you of that mindset? Would you have?
It, if it needed doing, it needed doing. I tried to, I didn't really like violence. I got brought up seeing a lot of violence, and I didn't like it. But it is what it is. Rather them than me, and that's the mindset in it. Do or die. I've done violent things that I'm not proud of, and it, it was just normalized. It was so normal to do it. And looking back now, obviously I've changed. I don't no longer go in those realms. I've done a lot of work around, psychology and like things like CBT. And the thing was, it was normal. So beating someone up until they couldn't walk, get up was normal, just that violence, that horrible things. And I look back and I think like why? Like that was a bit extra. There was no need to do that. But at the time when you're living it, you feel you have to, and you have to sort of send a message, because if you don't do it bad the first time, someone's going to come back around and get you a bit worse. So you need to make sure the first time counts.
Yeah. So where did that life take you? Inevitably.
Do you know what? That life took me on a roller coaster. A roller coaster which had a very, very bad ending. However, I managed to stop the roller coaster just before the big drop and walk back down to the exit before it went down that drop and led me to a life that I couldn't recover, led me to a life that I would have been a part of. And once it's gone past that stage, there's no coming back. I mean, I think I got out of it right at the right time. It was crazy how it happened. It was so crazy. There was a big investigation, and I'd say 15, maybe between 10 and 15 of us got arrested, sorry, in a big, massive investigation. You would never even think it was happening, but looking back, it was bound to happen. And I was one of the people that didn't get involved in it, because I had a set of morals. Like, there's certain things I wouldn't do, even though it's classed as it's a very bad game, and people will do low things and horrible things to people. I wouldn't, such as I always treat people that were on hard drugs like crack and heroin. I was still safe with him. I'd never act like I was too good for him. I wouldn't bully him. I'd just be nice to them, because at the end of the day, they were normal people. Whereas people I was chilling with, they treat them like they were lower than them, even though they was making them their money. And I didn't really get it. So I got out, and I decided to change my life around when I had my son first. My son came along. I took a back seat. Things were still running smoothly, I didn't have to be around as much. And then when my daughter was born, I got out of it all fully. I just washed my hands of it, and I've not looked back. It's not tempted me. I'm not bothered how much someone can make off this, or what women are around, or who's going partying where, or what clothes people have got. I don't care about that stuff anymore, because now I see it as like I'm here for a reason. Like everybody's here for a reason, and for me, a lot of people don't understand your life. Like I sit here now and I just think, well, my great granddad made me, but I don't know who this guy is. I've got no idea. same as my great great grandma, you know, and I didn't want to just be forgotten. I wanted to be remembered within my family for generation after generation after generation for making a change. And then the generations after me can only build off what I've created anyway. So in generations time, we should have a very something very strong and something built off morals and respect and manners that, you know, the future generations can develop on even more.
So how do you go from? Because I've got a few viewers that have been stuck in that life. I've got I've got a few that are actually sort of trying to make that transition
Yeah.
to getting out of that life. I'm a Afghan campaigner as well. How do you pull yourself away from that? I know how I did it,
Yeah.
and that was to distance myself and to get off the gear and to get away from county lines and but how did you do it?
So what I did is I realized that while I was on road doing whatever, I didn't have no self-worth. I didn't have no plans. I didn't have no future. I just had the weekend party time, innit? Like it's just a party time. So everything I was doing in the week was for the weekend. Make your money in the week, blow it weekend, back to square one. Might save up a bit of money, might get a bracelet, might get a watch, might get this, might get that, whatever. And then I thought to myself, well, I've got a kid here now, or kids. I can't do this anymore. Like I need more money to provide for my children, but I can't risk going to prison. Like I've just thought to myself, like, what? How would I feel? Like I'm supposed to be a man, like I'm supposed to support my family, but how can I do that from prison? So I was like, you know, that's it. I've done. So the transition was simple. You need to give yourself something. You need to give yourself a goal. Where do you want to be in 10 years? You hear a lot of mindset coaches, 5-year plan, 10-year plan. My 5-year plan was crucial to making my difference. So what I did is, what do I like? What do I like at school? Okay, then I like computers. So I went on to Indeed, typed in computer jobs, looked down, I saw computer networking. So I said, you know what? I'll get about 50 grand a year doing this once I've been to university, got my degree. It's going to take 5 years. Like I just locked myself away, focused on that solely. Didn't go out, didn't do nothing. I like you said, you have to isolate yourself. It's a very lonely process, you know. Mentally, it's a shaker. Like you'll feel like giving up because you want to go back to what you know and everything's new, but you've got to trust yourself because really truly deep down, don't think you're that special that you won't get either locked up and go to prison or get murdered or something bad will happen. If you think that can happen, then you can propel that same sort of energy and think that something good can happen. It's just vice versa, you know, good with the bad. So I locked myself away, concentrated on that, focused on that. I had to go to college to get a GCSE in maths. I didn't have no GCSEs. Then I had to do the foundation course for university. And then I started meeting people then. So I've gone from partying with bad people and stuff like that. Now I've gone to college. I've met, you know, people that I want. So, I think one of them I still talk to now when I see him. But you know, they weren't my type of people, but they were trying to learn, so I kept at it. And then I went to uni. The foundation year, I met another group of people. Some of them were younger than myself because I was 24 at this stage, and they were like 20, 21. But you know, we had a common goal. The common goal was we need to get a high enough mark so we can start the degree. So we built friendships through that, and I met new people through that. And then obviously I started university like properly, my degree, met more people, and these were people. I won't say there was like me. Some of them liked my music, like going to places I did, but a majority didn't. But you know, when you get older, you understand that not everybody's gonna match you as a friend 100%. You know, this guy, your favorite color might be black, their favorite color might be pink. But as you get older, you put that aside and you're like, do you know what? As long as you've got enough things to share, you know, and talk about, that's fine. It's okay. So that's how I started making friends like that. And then it just got better and better and better from there.
That's not easy. That's commendable, mate. To be honest, I got my hand up there. Education is pivotal. That's one thing I found that I needed to educate myself so I could educate others. It's not hard. It's not easy up north. One of the reasons that I moved, I moved to Portsmouth first and then moved down here. One of the reasons I moved away was because of the abject poverty. I grew up during the 80s, so I remember. I grew up in a small mining town just outside Wakefield. And I saw the poverty. So, and a lot of the towns like that never got,
Yeah.
they never got past any of that.
Yeah.
Sheffield, once the steel factories closed down, that poverty came in, and that wasn't easy. And I think when you're from that sort of level, it's a lot harder to catapult yourself back up. Would you not agree?
Definitely. I use a thing called 110 mindset, and that stands for 110%. And obviously, you give things to 100%, but in life, whether you come from a poor area, you're black, you're white, you're pink, you're a woman, you're a man, you've got a disability, you haven't, sometimes you'll find yourself on the back foot. And the 110 mindset acknowledges that and gets you geared up ready to work that 10% harder just to make sure you get where you need to be. And honestly, it works for me. It worked fine. Like when I started uni, I found out that I was dyslexic. Which I should have had help with at school, because I'd have got a lot further in school if I would have known, but I didn't know. Therefore, through the first, like I'd say, trimester of university, I had to teach myself how to learn, because their way of teaching me didn't work. It's everything. What I like people to understand is life is not set. Your job is not set. Your house is not set. Nothing is set. Everything moves. Everything moves along with time, and everything is a process. So you might not be winning today. You might win tomorrow. You might be winning tomorrow. You might not win. Do you know what I mean? So we need to adapt with the process and understand that things are forever changing. So you've got to change with it, and you've got to adapt, and you've got to prepare yourself into the future.
Yeah, I mean, I think as a not just being northern, I think that when you're from a certain mindset,
Yeah,
and when you've lived on that sort of criminal level,
yeah,
you find your ways to cope. You find your ways to survive.
yeah,
Sometimes surviving ain't enough, but you find your ways to learn. You find that, I'm dyslexic.
yeah.
I was brought up in the special school system, and I was always told that I'd never get anywhere. I'd always wanted to be a writer or an actor, or I always knew I wanted to write. I was always good with words, but I could never get them down on paper. I was always told that I'd never be anything, hence accidental journalist, because I was never meant to be, because of the mindset of other people. Because when you come from that, I came from a good family, but I went, obviously, when you go down that way and you go into drugs and you go into crime, you get into an impoverished way, and being impoverished isn't just in the circumstance and the situation and the society that you live. It's how you live in your mind, and it's how you think, and it's how you conduct yourself, and changing that is a big part of getting out of that sort of.
Yeah, 100%. Without changing that, without changing your mind first, like you've you've not got much chance. You've not. Most of it's in your mind. Most of it's battling with yourself. And if it's not you, it's your demons you're fighting with. And that's and that's it's hard because nobody sees that. Nobody sees the hard work when you're battling in your own mind. It's not visible to anybody, only you, and only you know how hard it is. So when you're trying to explain it to someone, they don't understand because it's not them. this is an issue. Like, they don't get it because it's in your mind, but the will, the power, you know, the commitment you've got to do to get over it, it doesn't exist. You can't say to someone, oh well, you know, I've had to do this and that in my head, and they'll look at you like, what? Like, are you all right in the head? Like, what do you mean in your head? Like, come on. Like, how do it, it's just like normal, like trained people that do sports and whatever. A lot of it is mental in your head. A lot of it's in the head, even though it might be a physical sport. It's a lot in the mind. If your mind's not right, your body's not right. Your body's not right. You're not winning. Simple.
Yeah, I agree. It's like from I'm an addict, and for me, addiction is not just people call it a disease, and it is a disease. It is a disease, if you like. Not at ease with yourself, and kind of a distance from yourself, but it's also, it's a disease of the mind, the body, the spirit. It's as much as a spiritual disease as it is a physical disease, and it's something that attacks you so hard that it is difficult to get up from.
Yeah.
I've done the dealing in my younger days. I tried to get away from that, and then I ended up on the other side. Kind of involved in county lines as a vulnerable adult in Norwich, and it's so difficult to get out of that mindset. I have a mindset now, and I have a way that I stay clean and I stay sober. But that's not just from the drugs; it's from that life, because
Yeah.
there are people out there that would like to see you dragged back in, and they would like they'd like to see you fail, or there are people out there that want to, they're like, oh well, and try and pull you back in on their level. And I think that once you've clawed yourself out, you have to get to a different level, so you have to work it every day.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
the way that I did it is probably a lot, creative, but a lot different to how you did it. So you did it through music, is that right?
Through no through just I I just plow myself into anything and everything I can. I did do music and stuff, but that way I think I just concentrated fully on doing my degree
Right.
in computer network engineering, you know, and that were my escape. That was my way of dealing things. It was my way of testing myself and proving, not to myself but to whatever I was trying to defeat. And it used to be, I used to try and prove people wrong. And then I looked at the people I was trying to prove wrong and noticed that these people are so insignificant in my life, there is no point in me trying to prove them wrong. So everything I try and prove is I prove it to myself. You know, for instance, if I might be doing, I don't know, I might be going on the bike with a group of lads and we'll be riding up the hill. Like, my job is not to defeat the people I've come with. My job is to defeat the hill. And that's where the mindsets differ. These want to try and beat me, but I'm beating something that only I can beat and only I can feel happy about beating. Now, that might mean that I will come last out of me and the boys, but the hill will always be there. Me and the boys won't be. So who do I want to be, and where am I setting my goals? Because if your goal is trying to beat somebody, what does that mean? If they beat you, then you're lower than them, then you should drop back down to where you came from. You know, I think people need to be careful on where they set the goalposts and understand that they're vital in changing, in that making that difference from, I say it's from bad to good, like it's badness to goodness. Is that if you set your goalpost on something that's not okay, then setting a goalpost on quicksand, how far is your goal going to be there? It's not going to be there for long because it's not on a solid foundation. So when you're creating goals and stuff, make sure you set them on the right parameter to measure it, and don't fall foul of, just trying to beat other people because they said something bad about you. They're irrelevant. Them people are so irrelevant. Once you get out of that bubble and onto the bigger things, those people, you'll just laugh at him. Like, I just laugh at him now. I just think, poor sods.
Yeah, yeah. I wouldn't say I love. I feel a great deal of empathy for people that can't sort of get out of that slump, but I do sort of look back and think, well, thank fuck it's not me anymore. Uh,
You have to.
you
You
know,
have to.
you do.
You deserve it. You know what? You deserve it. You deserve it. You've done well. You could still be there now, doing what you did before. Yeah, but you took it upon yourself to make the change. I bet that, there might be one or two people rooting for your side, but for the most part, people want you back there with them because they're stuck there. And that's how you know you're doing good. If the people you used to be around try and coach you back in, as human beings, sometimes I just wonder how we became, so, I say all on we, but it's not, it's just a selected few, but how those kind of people can have that kind of, you know, selfishness that you want to drag somebody back down to that level, even though you know you don't like it yourself. I think it's, what is it, like a secret shared is a secret half, is that what kind of feeling they're looking for? If I bring someone with me, that means I've got someone to share it with. You shouldn't be like that. You should let them propel, and then you should try and attach yourself to them while they're propelling, and you go up when they go up, and then you can celebrate together.
I think it's about for some people, it's about control. When they lose control of you, I think they think that they're going to lose part of themselves because you've been strong enough to get up and walk away from that, and I think that causes um, a massive bout of resentment, and resentment is really one of those things that it can push you or it can pull you back into that life.
Yeah.
You've really got to watch where you're standing with resentments. Resentments are poisonous, like unforgiveness is poisonous,
Yeah.
not just to other people, to self.
Mm.
If I get a resentment against, like, say you,
Yeah.
um, who, who's it bothering? Is it bothering you? Because no, it's doing me more damage. It's like unforgiveness. You don't forgive someone, you don't forgive yourself. It's like I say, I say it almost every week because it's important. If you have got so much unforgiveness in your life and you've got so much resentment it, against other people, it's not affecting them. When you've got it, having that, it's like drinking poison and expecting someone else to die. It's not going to happen. It's just going to kill you
Yeah.
faster, and it's going to destroy your soul. Um, so yeah, I mean, so you went from education
Yeah.
um, into computers. So what
Yeah.
was the next step from that?
So it was a bit of a mad one. So obviously I was at uni. While I was at uni, to provide for my family. I did doors, which were cool. I chilled on the doors. It weren't no. I've got no stories to tell you on how, this and that happened. Do you see? Like, obviously, I'm a big guy. I'm like 6'4", 22 stone. So a lot of people, didn't fancy it, and those that did fancy it, I was respectful to them, and they were respectful to me. I treat people as I like to be treated. So doing the doors, yeah, I've not got no stories that this person that got smashed up, or I did this and I did that. Obviously, I found myself in a few compromising positions, but I was able to get myself out of them. So yeah, I was at uni, was on the doors, hated it. I hated the doors. I hated it. I didn't only hate the hours, but I hated other doormen. They had no morals. My dad used to do the doors back in the day, and he used to tell me what the doors were like. Like, oh, you had to fight. You had to know how to fight. Some guys would come and you'd get this and that. So I went with that mindset. Our training, I was like, yeah, man, any trouble, I can handle myself 100%. But then it come around like, these other doormen, they weren't built like that. They like to beat students up, but they wouldn't tell a man that he couldn't come in. I were around these kind of weird people. I was like, what the hell is this? Like, I weren't interested in selling drugs. I weren't interested in chasing women. I weren't interested in bullying, 7 stone students. It weren't my cup of tea. So I thought, well, how can I work in the security industry and help people, and then that gave birth to my security company, Stay Safe Security. And what that does, it provides security staff that are trained for vulnerable adults, vulnerable children, substance misuse, conflict resolution, anger management, those kind of things. And I only provide contracts to housing providers that provide housing for sheltered accommodation. So it might be homeless people or people battling substance misuse or kids that are in care. So that kind of setting. I learned so much stuff creating a company. It was a limited company, so I had to learn how to get that registered. I had to learn how to talk properly. Like I know a lot of people say uni's no good and uni's this and uni's that. If you come from a certain background, right, you need to learn how to, you'll know yourself, you need to learn how to act professionally. And university helped me for that, so I could talk to people, professors and stuff on an educated level. So when I was in business meetings, I weren't turning up like, oh yeah man, what you saying, well, go on, blah blah blah. Yeah man, I speak properly, I know how to speak, I know how to address people, which helped me win my contracts. And because the fundamental of my security company is caring for people and wanting to make a difference. That comes through when I talk to people, and that's why I'm so successful. And I don't, I go to a lot of like entrepreneur groups and speeches and all this, and I don't give up. I don't find them interesting because everybody's main priority is money, 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 money. How successful is your company? Well, how much profit does it make? No, my company success is based on how I can help others, not how much money I get. I'm not bothered if I don't make a penny, but as long as if I make a difference to certain people's lives, that's how successful I see my company, and that's how I judge it. So to me, my company is really, really, really successful. So yeah, the security company came. I was doing that. I went to uni to get my master's in computer networking, and then I met my business partner Joanne, and we created a housing, a semi-independent housing program for young people aged 16 to 18, and I took on the learning mentor in that establishment. So yeah, I set out to be a computer network engineer, and I've ended up doing this. Oh yeah, and I do always an alternative, my not-for-profit. That's just giving back. All knife crime, gun crime, gang stuff, CCE, topics we've talked about. But I don't take away from that. Every single penny I make from doing my talks and anything to do with knife crime or that kind of stuff, it goes back into the company, and then that's used for projects for young people.
So tell me about some of the things that you do with the young people. How do
So what at
education?
the house, or is always an alternative?
Both, really. Both. How
So
does it
so the young people. So the limitless homes, that is when young people, they might have been in residential homes before, they come to us at 16, or they might be fresh into care at 16. So we've got a 2-year time frame, give or take a couple of months, to get them ready to live by themselves. So we have to teach them how to do the washing, work, do the cooking, budgeting, some tie shoelaces. I've had cases where a young person's come in and asked me to show them how to lock a door because they've never locked a door. So there's certain things that you take for granted that because your parents have shown you that they have got no idea what to do. So we have to make sure that they're ready to live on their own at the end of the 2 years of being with us. And that itself being a success. We don't fill beds. We don't just put any kids in our care. We've got to make sure we can make a difference to their life and make sure they can 100% live by themselves, because we'd hate to think that a young person had been with us and then time to move on to their own house and they got themselves, in debt, or they ended up getting mixed up in drugs and getting groomed and stuff like that. And I know we can't help a lot of that, but we try and give enough awareness on that so they don't go down that route, because again, the stigma around kids in care is very, very negative. And it's not. End of the day, they've had they've been unlucky to what's happened. Like, what people need to understand is, if you've had a good life, you should be happy, because other people don't have good lives. And it's the look of it's just luck. And there's nothing you can do, really, especially as a child, to change that look. It is what it is. Unfortunately, they got dealt a crap hand. They've got a lot to deal with, but don't write them off because of that. No one should get written off because of that. I don't understand it. A lot of, say, if you want to open a new place, like, a lot of residents around the area will have a lot to say. They'll make houses drop. They'll make the price of my house drop, or there'll be nothing but trouble. I'm sorry, but you've been 16 years old yourself, so give them a chance. You know, they were unlucky and unfortunate. However, they deserve a chance, like you've got a chance. So give it them. Don't write them off. It's unfair. It proper riles me.
I mean, we kind of have that problem in a local village near here. That a house has just been bought by an independent contractor that does the same sort of thing as you, and they've moved, I think, 3 kids in there,
Yeah.
and it was met by certain opposition of what I like to call the Volvo crowd. The middle classes, the abject conservatives, and it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. I don't judge anybody on the way to vote, but these are kids at the end of the day.
That's it.
The choices that I made. I put myself into the position.
Yeah, and
there are kids out there that don't have that choice.
That's what I mean, and that's the thing they don't understand. They lead by example, and if that's their example, how do they expect them to make anything good of themselves? End of the day, like I said, they were lucky. They get to live in a nice area, in the posh house. These kids weren't. Give them a chance. Help them. If you really like those kind of people, they judge people. They'll be judging you because you was a drug addict. They'll be judging me because I'm black. They'll be judging anything apart from themselves. Do you know what they need to do? They need to look in the mirror and address what situations they've got going on in their mind that makes them judge other people so bad. And then once they've got over whatever's issue they've got in their head, then they'll be free of this judgment, and then we can all crack on and make a difference together.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. So so you provide the education for the kids.
Yeah.
What else do you do?
So yeah, for that's like in a nutshell, that's the house. And for the always an alternative, that's what I do around like serious youth violence. I do a lot. So I do workshops, education again. For me, education's fundamental, because you do. For me, there's 2 ways of finding something out: either from a mistake or because someone's told you. You know, a lot of young people are carrying, like, so if we're talking about knife crime, for example, there's 2 types of kids that get involved in knife crime. There's your kids that are involved in drugs and gang and criminal activities that are protecting themselves. And then there's another cohort of young people. For me, these are the ones that are the high risk ones, are carrying knives to protect themselves because they think other young people have got knives as well. Now, they're the ones that need the talking to, because the fact is that, okay, then not all other kids are carrying knives. You think what you're going to do with this knife. However, it doesn't go to plan and somebody gets murdered or you get hurt. So to me, education as again 100% is necessary. You don't know something until you are told. And if you're not told, you're going to have to find out the hard way. So I think education, as I said, yep, on it. Let them know the risks. Like, I don't think when I go to do a workshop, I know I can't change this kid's life. I'm going to be with him for 1 hour. I haven't got the power to change what's happening at home or the peers. I know that. But in that 1 hour, I know I can teach them to think 1 second and ask yourself, is it worth it? That's all I ask for them. Just think before you're in a situation, before you pick up a knife, before you get into a fight, before anything that could have a negative effect on your life. Just think for 1 second, is it worth it? And if it's not, just don't do it. And that's what the fundamentals of the education is. I do knife collections every about 3 months. The last one was on the 9th. I got over 50 knives collected. I mean, a big bunch of them knives were kitchen knives because they're the most used in knife crime. But wow. About 5 or 6 of them, what do they call it? Like zombie knives? Like Soul Calibur knives? I remember, yeah, like, can you remember Soul Calibur and then PlayStation games?
Yeah.
Like, the blades are like, what the hell are you trying? Even hunters would be afraid to use these kind of blades because they don't want to mince up the whatever animal they're trying to eat. They don't want to make that much of a mess of it. But these kids are carrying these knives. What is going on? I don't know where they get them from. I'm guessing the internet because, that's where most things come from. Maybe the dark web. I don't know. But, the transition's mad. 3 years ago, I started this. The first year-ish was your little knives. You like your potato peeler knives, the smallest ones in a set. Then it grew to the biggest one in the kitchen set. Then it grew to machetes. And now it's grown to these dragon slayer knives. What the flip? I just can't. I can't fathom it. So to go along with that, there's weapons bins. I've got 6 to get put out in Sheffield. 3 have already been deployed. I'm in talks to get the other 3 deployed. And yeah, I do a podcast and I've written my book as well, One Knife, Many Lives. So yeah, I'm pretty busy trying to spread the awareness on knife crime and making the right life choices.
Yeah, we'll get to your book in a minute. I want to talk about like youth and gang culture. I think we need to touch upon it.
Yeah.
It's happening everywhere.
Yeah.
I live in a small, sleepy Norfolk town, and it's happening here. Because it's coming in from Norwich, which is the closest city. We're about 9 mile away. And when I was in Norwich and I was a vulnerable person, and I was around that sort of culture. You saw a lot of it. There's pretty much stabbings every day in Norwich that people don't hear about. Why do you think it is just at a rise at the minute?
I think the first thing is you need to. I think we need to, as people, understand the difference between, someone in a gang carrying a knife and a gang conflict scenario, as opposed to a worried young person carrying a knife to protect themselves. I'm seeing a lot more of the latter because it's everywhere, isn't it? People are getting stabbed, so they're feeling that they need to protect themselves. Why there's a rise? I honestly believe so gangs aren't new. They're not any bigger. They're about the same size. They'll have same people going in, going out. So that side of it is very much the same. We're seeing a rise in it because we're seeing a lot of young people carrying knives that are doing it just because they're scared. Like, there's no other reason. They're not selling drugs. It's either they're scared or they're trying to act clever to their friends, which, if you're protecting yourself, all's fair and well, but a knife is not the right way. So the climb is because you've got 2 kids that are going to fight. Let's just wind it back 10 years. You've got 2 kids that aren't involved in nothing. They're going to have a scrap. The chances of a knife being drawn out in that scrap are very, very slim because it's not for that, let's just call, cohort of kids. That's for the kids that are involved in gangs and stuff. That's normal there. But fast forward it now, we've got social media, which is propelling the stir up, the toing and froing over social media. So even though we've got 2 young kids that aren't in gangs, they're goading each other on. They're showing pictures of knives, So now you think, okay, I've got trouble with this guy. I don't like him. And then he sends me a Snapchat holding a kitchen knife, even though he might have just gone downstairs to his mum's, open drawer, took a picture of this knife, put it back in drawer, might never, ever take that knife out, ever think about it. But he's installed it in the other person's mind that he's got a knife. And obviously, if you've got trouble with someone, you know what that means. You've got a knife and you, etc., etc. So he thinks, well, forget that. I'm not going to go out without a knife because this guy's got a knife, so I'm going to carry a knife. They meet each other, one guy thinks the other guy's got a knife, so he pulls his knife out, someone's getting stabbed. It's that. It's just that simple to me. Now I could be wrong. This is only how I see things. I'm working with the young people in my area. Like I said before, you know, the stabbing and stuff in gangs, it's not new. The extreme violence, it's not new in gangs. It's nothing new. It's been going on for decades and decades and decades. It's this surge of young people that are just scared, and some of them just want a name of themselves because that's what they see on social media. And we need to educate the young people. We need to educate them, not just the ones that are getting involved in the gang stuff, but the ones that are carrying it because they're scared. I have noticed with the gang side sort of stuff that the kids getting involved in gangs are very, very young. Like when I was about, there was a rule: under 18, do not even try. Do not even try and do anything. You can do one job and that's go to the shop. That is it. Now I'm seeing 14, 15-year-olds and they've got a bit of weight about them. Like certain people won't go, and I'm like, what the? It's just like a free for all, and that again, you know yourself. As when you're younger, you don't value your life as much, and you know you think you're indestructible. So you know, you cheeky little 13, 14 year olds are now making a bit of money on road, and there's been a shift. Like before, you could call people your olders because they were like 30 odd, and you were like 19, 20, and now olders are like 22. I'm like, how the hell are like what are they older to? Like nursery kids. It is mad. It's crazy.
Short shelf life, I think.
It must be.
You know, when I was about it, a straightener was a straightener, you know, and sometimes you needed a straightener. It was always with this,
Hmm.
you know, and if you lost, you'd get your hand shook and you'd get cleaned up.
Yeah.
Um, you know, and if you would, and it'd been no harsh feelings. You
Yeah.
know, you'd have a straightener, but now you can't even have that because it's just,
It's just, yeah. I think it
you know,
boils down to there's a lot of pressure. So back in the day, if you had a scrap with someone, you know, it's not going to be in front of everyone. You're going to go around the corner. You and him's going to sort it out. You're both going to go back around the corner, sorted. Maybe a couple of people saw it. Maybe you got beat up, but he wouldn't like take the mick out of you. You've had your fight. Whoever's won, walk away. Whoever's lost, walk away. That's it. We crack on. Respect, morals. Now there's peer pressure because there's always someone whipping out a phone, recording you. And if you get seen to back off, you're gonna get labeled as a pussy. Do you know what I mean? As a you know, a bitch or whatever kind of words. So I think that's got a major thing to do with it, that they don't want to become a target because they've been recorded. And I always said to the young people, like, they all tell me like why, like, and then I'd go through some conflict resolution techniques and de-escalation stuff, and then at the end I'll say there's nothing wrong with walking away, and then at 100% of the time someone's going to say I'm not walking away because I am not a pussy. And then my question to that person is, what do you mean you're not a pussy? And then we'll say, okay, then the scenario is this: you've got beef with this guy, you've got all these people around you, right? Do you care for him? No. Do you love him? No. Did he make an impact to your life that bad? No. So why is it that you're so bothered about these people that you don't care about calling you a pussy? And then I ask him, and they're like, do you know what? Like, you're true. Like, people that you don't know or don't care about are going to call you a pussy. And what? They could just call you a pussy anyway, even if you don't fight. Or, you know what I mean? Don't try and
yeah.
impress these people that have no bearing on your life because they don't matter. And the people that are goading you on, I bet they're the ones that aren't fighting. They want you to fight, you
Mm.
know? So it's just be careful of who you're around and don't buckle under that pressure. And I know as you get older, it's easier said than done. But now it's proving pivotal. That one time you said, you know what, I can't be bothered with this, could be that one time when someone's got a knife and someone ends up getting stabbed.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, you're right there. I mean, you know, it's a cause for concern for many a parent. You know, I've got teenagers, and I see the world in a different way to most parents. I've seen it in its highest definition that there is possible.
Mm.
Um, and social media's got a lot to answer for. And I think a lot of it comes down to culture as well. Um, not just gang culture, but the way that the television spins it, and you know, I think we've got a real big problem on our hands, and it's going to be one that's going to be a fight for people like us for a long time,
Mm.
because it's people are not de-escalating. My good friend's a barricade and hostage negotiator. I've had him on here a few times, and so he's like you're saying about conflict resolution and stuff like that. And I've gone through some of this stuff with him, personally as well. And it's about face.
Yeah, yeah.
You ain't. They won't. They're so afraid to resolve conflict because they might be seen as weak, or as you say, they
In,
might be seen called a
as a
pussy or whatever.
Yeah, inferior. They might be seen as the inferior one, but
Really, yeah.
does that boil down to the man thing? Does it boil down to that? Who's the alpha male? This kind of stuff is ingrained in men. You'll
It's
see it
toxic.
yourself. Like me, I'm not, but I don't care. Once upon a time, I cared. Now I do not give two flying whatevers about what other people think. I'm not getting into no argument over nothing stupid. I've got a life to live. I've got goals that I want to achieve. I've got a family to provide for and do good for. I'm not bothered about these people, but that comes from confidence. I'm 100% confident. And and it's not something overnight. You talk to me, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago, I wouldn't be like this now. I'd be bothered. Someone's unfollowed me on Twitter because of what I said. I'd be bothered. I'm not bothered now because you're not part of the plan. If you're not part of the plan, you can leave. I'm not. I'm in meetings and stuff with people that want to be the big boss man. I've all my life I've grown up around these kind of men that want to prove that they're men. And you know what happened when it come to the crunch? They crumbled like Weetabix. And I'm looking at them like I thought you was the man here. Clearly, you're trying to act like father figures in my life. These guys just always went out the way to try and prove to me that they was the big hard man. But when it got put in a position and they crumbled, who was the big hard man? I know myself. I know what I can do. Do I need to let anybody else? No. I'm going to crack on with my life and live normal. But it's that thing again, the alpha male. What male is the strongest? You cannot be seen weaker than another person. What? How about don't get into the situation and then you've got nothing to worry about? But people
Yeah.
don't, good that route, and a lot of men don't talk about this stuff. So I like me and you can have a conversation because we've gone through stuff and we can open up and we've done a lot of self-searching. So certain things to us we don't mind talking about. I know my friends and some of them, even to this day, would not say no to a fight just because of what we've talked about. They don't want to be seen as they're big men. They've got jobs, they've got kids, but they won't say no. What like I can't fathom it. I just hope that us as men bring our kids up to to resolve things and don't say you have to fight or you can't be seen as the weak one. You don't need to be seen as anything. You just need to know what you need to do and have your game plan. People will always see you in a way. I know people that can fight, that will knock people out, and they're aggressive and they're angry, but I also know someone that could call them a pussy. You know what I mean? It's that simple. We just need to drop that front and that that macho man aggressiveness, and I just think it's odd. I think it's
It's
odd.
good stuff, isn't it? It is odd. It's good stuff. I mean, it's you get into an argument and then you puff your chest out and you get louder, and then they make themselves bigger and they get louder, and you get stuck in this precipitous dance, and you just end up walking around each. What is toxicity. To me, toxic masculinity is, it's all those things. Who's to say that actually the bravest thing to do is to walk away?
That is the bravest thing to do.
It
It
is the
is.
bravest thing
It is.
to walk away, to not snap, to not get caught in that reciprocous behaviour, to not bite back, to not throw the first punch, to offer the hand of friendship, to try and talk down. That is the thing that takes the courage. But people get into the heads that the macho thing to do is to throw the first fist, or block the first punch, or whatever. Who can lift the biggest weights? Who can punch the hardest? Who can take the most punishment? And
Yeah.
it's not. It's actually, as a father of of boys and girls, father and a stepfather. I've always tried to instill that actually emotion is the key thing, because that's one thing that I didn't have a grasp on for many years, because I blocked it with certain chemicals, and then when I ended up with brain damage, I lost a certain ability to see emotion in people's faces, to read it in texts. But I always instill in the children that actually it's and in anybody, when I do these, that actually talking about something and bringing it to the surface is the thing that we have to do. This is my way of combating some of my demons, and I know getting people on, this is a way for them to combat their demons. I'm talking about things in my podcast that other people won't, that they shy away from, things like this, things like suicide prevention, mental health, because people see it as taboo, and see it that as men, especially as men, that we shouldn't have these problems, and that mental health is something that doesn't need looking at, when it does. But people won't admit it. They won't admit that actually, as men, with the highest suicide rate, with the highest mortality rate, in stress-related heart attacks, and it's just it gets too much for some men, and it used to get too much for me, which is why I medicated. But we need to put in we need to put in education and lessons for people to be able to change. How are you supposed to change if you don't know?
Exactly. Exactly. 100%. And you're right. Everything you just said, right. Mental health, but it boils that down to that thing again, doesn't it? The macho thing, coming across weak. To talk about your stuff, that's not what you do. If you get mad, you fight. You get upset, you fight. Unless it's funny. But even that, laugh too long, you fight. Like that's men. I feel that men are taught to deal with the emotions through physical, but through anger. Like you can't feel upset, you have to be angry. You can't feel sorry for someone, you have to be angry. Every emotion's tilted towards aggression. It's not needed. You're not, if you're suffering, you're suffering. Man, woman, girl, boy, yellow, pink, blue, suffering. Now, the only person you're hurting by not talking if you're suffering is yourself. And that's not a macho thing to do. A macho thing to do, the right thing to, in fact, it's not even about being macho, it's about the right thing to do is get help. Mental health is a really, really, really big thing. But a lot of men, like you said, don't talk about it because it's seen as a womanly thing to do. They talk about their emotions. I'm a man, I have to keep mine bottled up because I'm harder, I'm stronger. But are you really? Are you really stronger? Because like you said, talking, that's a strong thing to do. When you're talking about your raw emotions and you're trying to stop yourself from crying, that's strength, not fighting. not fat. Because what? That's an emotion from cavemen. Cavemen have those emotions. You know, since then, we've become a lot more in tune with our emotions. And as words have progressed, we've been able to stick words to emotions so we can express them better. You know, we've come a long way. But now, you know, men need to step up and talk, and you know, and not see yourself as being you know, less manly if you talk about issues you've got. Just be an open book, and you know, it will get better. And there's people that'll listen. And if you're scared because your set of groups, you know, a lot of men don't talk because they feel that the set of group, the group set they're in, will take the piss out of them. You need to change what people you hang around with and start hanging around with people that actually care.
You do. But like, I mean, I'm very lucky that only in my this bout of sobriety that I've found men that are quite strong in that sort of field, that you know, that know about emotion. And you know, when I was a kid, the only sort of male thing that I had was my dad, and I love my dad to bits. But he was a pure worker, a railway worker, so he was a pure worker, and he, you know, he worked, he provided for his family, did this, did that, and all the other men that I had in my life were all like into the glutinous extremes. So you know, about serving self. So it was about the drugs, it was about the drink, it was about the fun that you can have, the fights, the Friday night, you know, and that was it. So you know, I didn't really have that sort of positive male around me, apart from the wisdom that my dad gave me. He did give me some great wisdom, but it's only in the past few years that you know, in the community and in the church that I'm part of, excuse me, I've got quite a lot of strong, in tune males around me that have all lived toxic. You know, they've lived that toxicity and they've come through the other side. You know, I've got friends like Dominic Negus that you know was probably one of the most feared men in Britain, and now he himself will stand up against toxic masculinity and talk about mental health. I think that more men need to do that, more men with a platform, which is one of the reasons I set this platform up, to give that, not a soapbox, but I always said that once I found my voice, I would give a voice to other people, because I didn't know what my voice was. And I think that is a big common problem around some of the youths. They hear the voice of the gangs, they hear you know, the communal, and they talk about. I fell into the same trap when I was younger, you know, doing the debt collection, and the people are banging on about, you know, it's all about family, we'll protect you, blah 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 blah. You know, we're family, we're not blood, but we're family, and it's mind control, and it's, you know, it's dangerous. People will use that, and they will use young, vulnerable people, men and women, that desperately searching to be acknowledged, and they use that to get their own way. So you know, we need to be teaching young people to combat that as well.
Definitely. They do. Do you know what it is like? It's whatever sort of group, you know, they want you to be a part of. You know, they've been doing it for years. They know the procedures into sucking people in, especially vulnerable people, because it benefits them. You know, it benefits them ultimately. and whether it's, you know, like the stuff you did or into a gang, you know, they make it appealing, they sell you the good stuff. It's like a car salesman, isn't it? Like, he's not going to tell you that the windows are broken. You know, he's not going to tell you that it needs a new clutch in 2 months. They don't. You know, they go along with what's in music videos, they go along with all this fancy stuff on social media, like, yeah, you can live this life, da 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 da. And then once you're in there, and you know, you quickly realize that, you know, it's not that simple, it's not that easy, and you're lucky to get that sort of money throughout your whole career. I know men, you know, as old as me, that still dabble in that, and it's a shame. They'd have had more money if they'd have just got a 9 to 5, but the lifestyle still appeals to him. It doesn't appeal to me, but it appeals to them. So, you know, as you know, as long as they don't, like groom vulnerable kids and stuff like that, then it is what it is. But just keep yourself to yourself and don't get other people involved, because, you know, and I think that's a bit dangerous as well. They're also the dangerous ones, the guys that are a bit older, that have got a bit more wisdom and they know what the young people want to hear. I think they capitalize on that and get them drawn in a bit too fast. And, you know, they should be ashamed of themselves, man. They should be honestly ashamed of themselves.
Yeah, I mean, like I say, they bang on about family, but they've got no family values whatsoever.
None. That's
You
what I
know,
mean. But it's like
that's what
anybody.
family would
It's
want
like
to be.
anything. It's like anything. It's like anything. People want to use you while you're useful. As soon as you're useless, they don't want to know. It's any sort of scenario, even in the workplace. You're good to your employer while you're doing the work. Stop doing the work. You're no good. Goodbye. It's the same sort of thing. And these things, these tactics and strategies used by gangs, they're used in like the normal world, like day to day. Government, they groom people. How do they groom? Of course they groom people, because they're making you think something that's not real. They'll tell you X, Y, and Z in a manifesto, the same how a drug dealer will tell a young kid. And then once the young kid gets in the gang, or once that, government gets into power, what happens then? They don't have to do anything. It's like, well, you're with us now, so you're stuck. You're doing what we have to say. Same as the young kid in the gang. So, it's just a messy situation, man.
I mean, what is it about these people that talk kids? Because this is what they are, the kids. They talk kids into being fully aware and fully willing to lay down their life for a beef, and that really that upsets me. I think that they should be culpable for murder, because not only are they willing to lay down their life, they're willing to take a life.
Yeah. Um, I feel the same. I feel the same with you. It's disgusting. But more often than not, they're wanting them to do it because they're in the same position. I don't think the hierarchy of gangs is quite complex. It's not as simple as what you may think. And obviously, you'll know because you'll be mixed up in it. But I mean, like the viewers. So even though you've got this person telling you what to do, they won't be nowhere near the top. They're not. They're just little as well. So in their mind, they're thinking, well, if I've got this guy to do it, then it lessens my chance of having to do it. And that's what they want. But you've got, end of the day, it's young people's lives, like they're ruining their lives. But you'll know yourself, being in that sort of being close to that kind of circle. It's a bubble, and you don't understand these things because you're in the bubble, and it's normality in the bubble. So what they're doing is not wrong, because they've not been taught. Even 20-30-year-olds, they've not been taught and been shown, like, look, what you're doing is wrong. So while they're in the bubble, everybody thinks it's right, apart from people not in the bubble. And unless someone goes into that bubble and tries to explain stuff and break stuff down, nothing's going to happen. You're going to keep doing it because that's what normal is.
I agree. I do agree. I think that we really need to push in educating people before they get pulled into that. Tell me about the book.
Oh yeah, my book, One Knife, Many Lives. Basically, you know, a bit like you, like when I found out, I struggled at English. I failed how many times. Got told I wouldn't amount to much, especially writing, because I found it difficult. It weren't the fact that I was rubbish at it, and I tried. I just found it. I just didn't get. I don't get even now, even though I've written my book. You know yourself that I still struggle. Text. I don't know how people read them. I get, direct messages when I've done a status saying, "Oh, you spelled this wrong, and you need to spell it that way." And so I written my book to try and prove to myself that I could write. But I wanted to capture the impact knife crime has. Like, no one's done a book like it. So it's not about me. It's not about my life, because I don't think I'm that special where someone's going to want to read a book about me. Maybe I am, maybe I'm not. I don't know. But it's a story that shows how, the kids that are carrying knives because they're scared, how those kind of kids can get their life absolutely destroyed with just that 1 second. So yeah, it talks about the impact of knife crime, and not just on the young person, on their family, on the community, and how it just devastates life. I also talk about substance misuse and how people use that to try and deal with things and hide things. I talk about domestic abuse and how, by people thinking that they're keeping their family safe by not talking about it and not getting help. In fact, you're not, because more often than not, the young people, like the children, they do pick up on the signs, and they're actually living in fear because of it. And it talks about mental health as well, because you know yourself, like knife crime, there's a lot of trauma attached to it. There's a lot of mental health, grievance. So it takes you through quite a lot of things, and I've gone in. I went into great detail to make sure that each point came out properly, and at an angle where, it's not a hard read. It's not a hard read by any stretch. It's some people have read it in a day. But I paid a lot of attention to it. So the cover of it, I made sure that was a bit rubbery, so it had a texture. I made sure the book was quite heavy, because you know yourself, to me, things that have got value are quite heavy. So I made it heavy for that. I didn't use normal paper that you find in books. I used glossy paper because you associate glossy paper with an easier read because of magazines and stuff like that. So I went into a lot of detail, even the text, like, I don't even know if I've got a copy. I ain't got a copy anyway, but even the text is dyslexia friendly. So I did a poll with different kinds of text, and I said, look, guys, which text do you find the easiest to read? So they were like, people with reading difficulties said, oh, this text. And then I asked people without reading difficulties, they said it don't really matter, it's still words. So I really thought about the reader, and especially the younger readers. And yeah, I just did it. I self-published it. I didn't go published because I didn't want to. I don't like doing things. I don't like being told what to do. And I knew if I'd have gone down the published route, they don't want this changing. It wouldn't have been how I wanted it. And I think that's why I push so hard, because I know what I like. And if it was just going to be the same as everybody else, then it'd just be a book. But when you're talking about like knife crime, and in the way that I'm talking about it, it's not been done before. Therefore, why should it be like an autobiography of, I don't know, Bill Gates or whoever? Why should it be like that? It's new. It's our chance to capture young people in a subject that's affecting them the most. So why can't we roll with that? And I just did it. I've learned a few things on the way, but you learn from your mistakes, and obviously the next book will well, it'll be better because I'll have learnt from the mistakes of doing something the first time. And I'm more than happy. I'm more than happy me to make a mistake doing something the first time, because I never see mistakes as bad things. You know, I think they're good. I think mistakes are positive because at least you know where you're going wrong. You know how to change. I think the only time a bad thing should be seen as something bad is when you don't learn from it and you do it again.
Mm.
And yeah, and that's it. My book, One Knife, Many Lives. It's got good reviews as well. Like everyone said, it's wicked. They didn't imagine it to be like how it is. They thought it'd be to do with gangs. It's got nothing to do with gangs. It's not. It's not like that. You just have to read it to understand like where I'm coming from.
Yeah, I'll get it links in this once this is over.
Oh,
Um,
cheers. Thank you.
yeah, I mean, I like the fact that you've thought about it. You know, the stuff that I publish, I've published with Warcry Press. I get relative control over what I write, but I wouldn't have even thought about the texture of the paper. You know, it's common sense, really. I wouldn't have thought about the texture of the paper. I wouldn't have thought about, I just chose a cover that I wanted, and put the words in that I wanted to put in, and that was how it went for me. But
Yeah.
you know, I guess that what you said there is kind of a learning curve for me, because I wouldn't have thought about doing it glossy. I wouldn't have thought about making it open for people with learning difficulties, even though I've got learning difficulties myself.
Yeah.
I think we get trapped in a certain mindset.
It is that you know, and that's the thing. Like I, how can I put it without sounding like I'm just like I just disobey rules? I don't disobey rules. I just think just because a cup's made for tea, it doesn't mean it only has to have tea in it. Do you know what I mean? It can have anything in it. So just because a book is something that you read, you know, if I could, I wouldn't even have it in a rectangle, you know. But you get where I'm coming from. Like you've got to get
Yeah.
creative with things and understand and understand stuff and really take yourself out of it for a second. If you know, and that's what you do, especially with books as well. Because if you go to a library, every book looks the same. Every book feels the same. They've even got that smell. Like when you smell it, it's got a book smell. And I thought, well, why don't you? So when you start reading at school, you might like it, you might not. More often than not, a lot of kids don't like reading. So their mind's automatically going to be associated with what? The color of the pages, with the look of the book, with the smell of the book more so. So how can I get rid of all that? So when a kid picks up my book, it just smells fresh, like glossy paper. Like that's it. Change the paper. Paper's in a book. You've got
Mm.
a variance of different paper types to use. Your text. You don't have to use the same text. Everybody, what it is rightly so. They've got a good formula. They're sticking to it. But we've got a new problem now, and I don't think that old formula is going to work for this new problem. Therefore, we need to create a new formula for this new problem and run with it. That's how I see it.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's just it's a sensible thing to do. But I mean, as writers, I don't think even though we have that experience, I don't think we always think about other people. I think that sometimes as writers, we just think about what we need to get on the page. Or I do anyway.
Yeah.
And I think that what this has opened up for me is the fact that actually I need to be thinking about the people that are going to read it.
Hmm.
And is it going to be comfortable for them, let alone comfortable for me?
Just
Um,
the user experience. It's just that, just next time, you know, and that's the thing. What I've noticed with writing the book, you know, what does an author do? An author writes. As long as you've got the text there, everything else is good. Like you said, you've got the text. That's your job done. But is it? Do you want? Do you want your audience to truly capture what you're saying? And if you do, you need to make those little changes. You need to. It's like a car. You have your bog standard cars what have got an engine in. You know, might be good, might be bad. They're your words. But what about them little mods that add increased value to the car? They're those little things like the book covers and the fonts and the glossy paper and the size of the book and the weight of the book. They're those things that aren't like. There's no rules on that. A book's supposed to look like a book. That's a rule. Everything else, if you find a different way to attack things, you find a different angles. And I use that same thing when I deliver workshops. I'm always finding different angles and different ways to hit the kids so they understand what I'm saying, not the conventional way like do not carry a knife or do not join a gang or this person wants. No. It doesn't work like that. You need to find whether it's through, you know, linking an issue such as knife crime with a rapper that's recently got locked up for it, or using an example of a movie that's been done that you can, you know, they can relate to. And you've got to keep it current and you've got to keep it good. In a book, especially if it's for young people, the traditional way of books, that's not I don't think that's going to work. But on the other side, you know, I mean, you're doing great. You've got a publisher. That's one thing I've not got. So I'm stuck here with like 500 books. And you don't have to worry about that. So yeah.
I'm stuck here with no books and no way of getting them. So, you know, I think that just because we've gone it different ways doesn't mean that either way is thing. You know, I'm looking at getting more books out, doing a re-release of the first 2 books. You know, but you know, I'm sat here with, you know, I've got a copy of my first book somewhere, and a copy of the last book, which was the Paul Massey book that came from Bad Boy Press. But apart from that, I haven't got copies. So you've got copies of your book that you can do what you need to do with.
Yeah.
Whereas I would have to go out and order a specific amount. You know, it might be a way I go down the line.
You should try it. You know what the good thing about that is? You know what I really like? As much as I can, I will. So obviously for me it was dodgy because it came out. What was it? The 9th of September. I've got a plaque there on my wall that my friend did me. So it came out the night, like we was in COVID. Like COVID helped me a lot because I'd started writing it, but with the first lockdown, I stayed in my house for 3 months solid, didn't leave. So I capitalized on that by fully finishing my book. So I had the book and I did a launch. Luckily, it was like in between the 2 lockdowns. But the thing I love about the way I've done it is I can interact with people that are buying my book. When I can, I'll go and deliver it to them personally. If I can't, I'll send it in the post. But I just love that interaction. Like, why did you buy it? What do you expect from it? You know, please let me know. These are the other things that I do. If you've got any worries or you know anyone that can help with X, Y, Z, or they're going through anything in the book, you come and give me a shout. You know, you get to. I don't just want it to be. It leads back to that same thing of I just don't want to be forgotten. When my kids have kids and their kids have kids, I want people to remember me behind the book and remember the passion that I had. Because when someone buys my book on Amazon or orders it online and I send it to them, they don't get to meet me. They won't really understand the true passion that I have and the reason I have for writing it. And I think, you know, and I'd advise you to do the same thing. Even if you have to buy a blocker, like when you re-release your book, buy 50 yourself, get yourself a little table, do like a little book relaunch, meet people, engage with people, and you know they'll teach you stuff, you teach them stuff. It's just an opportunity to grow and to grow as a person, as an author, in all like ways of life, really.
Yeah, I mean that's something that I'm gonna, I think, take serious stock of, you know, and have a look at. You know, I'm all right at writing a book, but when it comes to selling it, I'm not exactly the best person to be able to do that. You know, I can go into the odd shop and they will take a few off me because they know me and they know a little bit about my story, and they share a little bit about that passion. But Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think that we all need to take more stock in what we do, and you know, push the books out more than we do. You know, I've put my books out and then I've sat back. But then again, you know, putting them out and then putting all the work into it and putting all the sort of stuff over Facebook that I've done. You know, especially the second book, I got
Yeah.
banned from Facebook several times because I tackled human trafficking, and then um, people were putting it out as you know, reporting it as pornography.
Wow.
I had human traffickers going up against me, keep reporting my links. Um, you know, uh, and it gets tiring, to be honest. Rejection upon rejection.
Of course, but do you know what? Yeah, you know, it's life. Like, not everyone's gonna like it. You know, it's the same goes for everything. It's not everyone's cup of tea. You just need to you know what I mean. I see it as this: like, I'm one person away from selling a book. That's it. Like, the amount of people that have said no straight up, they don't like to read. That's fine. The amount of people that have said they would, but they never have, that's okay, but you never know until you ask. And getting knocked back, you can't see it as like, I know it takes up energy, and I know how it feels, but you can't see the negative side to it. The positive side is that you've approached this person. I bet there was a time in your life when you wouldn't have approached nobody for anything like that ever, but look, you're doing it now, so you've made a big step. So the only thing is, the only thing from you selling this other book is that person. And again, it goes back to this: how much is that person worth? Are they, you know, do you love them? Do they care for you? Do they have that much of an impact on your life? Chances are, no, they don't. So crack on to their next one. And then if you sell 1 million copies, I'm going to come for some 5% though. I'll tell you that.
Exactly, exactly. You know, um, you don't sell books, you don't get the money in, do you? You know.
You don't, and it's a whole thing, and you know, look into marketing, and look into that side of stuff, because it's a bit like it or lump it. I know you've got a publisher, but they can only do so much for you, and unfortunately, a lot of that still falls on your head unless you've got one of them proper publishing deals that have got millions and millions of pounds, you know. But anything you learn in this journey, you can use it for your next book. You can use it for the other book. Sooner or later, you'll know so much about selling books. You're going to look at your publisher and be like, do you know what? What do I need you for? Like, I know that you're in the position at the minute because you're starting off that you do need them. However, the more you learn, it's not wasted. Just because you learn how to market one book, you can market 1,000 books. Every book you make, you know how to market now. You might just dip your toe in the water and be like, oh, I'm going to look at some printers. Find a printer that can do it for £2 a book, £1 a book. All right, I'm going to keep you know what I mean? Keep your details, keep that. Next thing you know, you've written your book. You've learned how to, because I had to learn how to I formatted everything. I formatted it, got the pictures in there. I did it all myself. I learned how to do that. So now my next book, I can do that in quick times. So now I'm in the position where I don't think I can't think of an instance where a publisher could approach me and me bite their hand off unless it was for something very, very good. Because I see publishers as they're like the middlemen, and obviously rightly so, they've got to make money for their services and etc. etc. But you'll learn so much that you might not need them, and then when you don't need them, that's when you'll see your profit go. You'll go from making, I don't know, £1 or £2 a book, £8, £9 a book, depending on how much you sell your book for. And then just think of the hard work. And that's truly when you will understand like hard work. That's when hard work pays off, when you're in the position where you can do it like self-published. And you know, you're talking 80% profit every single book you sell. 80% profit. And it's you'll know yourself, it's a lot of money, but you know, it's a learning curve, and you're doing great. Just keep at it. But yeah, don't shy away from, you know, learning new things about the book, because it's in your bank, it's in your head, it's self-investment. Even if you have to pay for it, self-investment, and it'll help you develop.
Yeah. So what's the next book then?
So my next book is going to be One Knife, Many Lives Part 2. What's it called? I don't know, but it's going to continue where it left off. is going to go down the avenue of how can I tell you without giving too much away? County lines is going to play a big part in there. Trauma is going to play a big part in there. A single parent family with lack of role models, that's going to play a major part. And it's just so, people can. I tried to write the book so you're not reading the book, but you're learning from it unconsciously at the same time. So I always say something like, you can either something and then you understand something, such as I know that the sky is blue, but I don't understand why the sky is blue. You know, that kind of knowledge, that depth of knowledge. So when I write my book, I write it for both tiers, so people know and then they understand and can learn from it. Because it's only from when you understand something properly, that's when you can learn from it. So that's what I try and do in my books, which is, it's quite difficult still. It is, I'm not going to lie. Well, you'll know yourself. It's you when you know something and not something's in your mind, in your head. It makes it even worse when you're dyslexic. In your head, everything's ABC. You pass it to your editor. Wow, like it's not that simple. It's all back to front, jumbled up. Like I never knew that through, thorough, throughout, and another one was spelled different. I thought they was all the same word. Oh my word! My thanks to the editor though, and thanks to my friends and family that proofread it before I sent it to the editor, because I think that would have cost me a couple of grand.
Yeah. But at the end of the day, as people with certain learning difficulties, we have ways that we cope. And I don't think that we're always. I think it's a great idea to have a proofreader anyway, because we're not always able to see our own mistakes.
Never.
I'm really bad for it, and I miss it time and time again. And then somebody will point out, and I'll be adamant that I was right. But then I'll look at it, and it's like, hang on, yeah, no, you're right.
Yeah. I'm the same.
I've just put out 50 copies of this, and it's got the same. It's got the same mistake in it. So, it is a learning curve, isn't it?
Yeah, always is. Everything is as is life. It's all a learning curve, and you just have to actually learn from it. And then it's when you start learning from that curve, then you'll get the most out of your life.
Yeah, I agree, mate. I agree. So how can people get in contact with you?
So I'm on Instagram at Ant's Journey, ANTZ Journey. So yeah, that's my Instagram. Twitter's the same. On Facebook, I'm Big Ant, and TikTok as well. I've got on TikTok with the kids and that, because that's how they engage a lot. That same Ant's Journey, and Always an Alternative. That's on Instagram. That's AAA Mindset, and on Facebook it's just Always an Alternative, and you'll see that there. That's the logo on it, looking all smooth. But yeah, that's how you can get at me. My website, www.alwaysanalternative.org.uk. That's got everything that I offer on there, and also my email if you need to get in touch with me via email.
Brilliant. I'll try and get those up in the comments or in an edit on this post.
Thank you very much.
Brilliant. I'll just I'll sign off, and then we'll have a quick chat. All right.
All right, cheers. It's been a pleasure. Thank you for your time and what you're doing yourself. I think it's really good. I've liked listening to your story a lot. I just hope that people get to listen to it, because they could learn quite a lot from your mistakes and gain quite a lot from your gains. So yeah, just keep it up, and thanks again.
Thank you, mate. Thank you. Thanks, guys, for tuning in as always. I do have a website now, which is jwgreg.wordpress.com. And the Accidental Journalist Facebook site. I'm on Two Geeks One Bus on Two Geeks One B on Twitter, and JW Greg on Instagram. That's the first time I've put all of them out. Thanks for watching. I'm talking to trying to get Yami B on in the next couple of weeks, and we're going to be talking about recovery. He's going through it at the minute, so it's going to be really raw and full on. You can see all of these videos on the website under the Accidental Journalist webcasts. Cheers for tuning in, and I shall hopefully see you next Tuesday. Thanks, guys.